So The Last of Us TV series has been okay so far, besides, well, maybe a few hiccups if you're not necessarily into that sort of thing. I can definitely understand if that's not everybody's thing, and trust me, it definitely is not mine. But for what it was actually a pretty good emotional episode. And I'd be damned if I didn't say that it actually did the game a little bit better, while at the same time also not doing as good as the game. For I feel like Joel and Ellie's relationship really needs to breathe at this point. In case you haven't figured it out, this is going to be a recap of both episode 4 and 5. I was looking to get it out quickly, but a lot of stuff came up in my personal life, so I decided to just mix episode 4 and 5 together. Before we get into this, I just gotta let you know, my channel is about gaming reviews and news, and sometimes TV show reviews like this. So if you like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and also turn on notifications, you know, all that stuff. Without any further ado, let's get into this. So we start off the 4th episode with Bella Ramsey doing her best impression of Ellie, doing her best impression of Robert De Niro, doing his best impression of Clint Eastwood.
You talking to me?
Cliches aside, it's actually not a bad scene, you know, she's just kind of getting used to her gun, fiddling around with it. She then goes outside and insults the fuck out of Joel again, like she normally does, making fun of him for not knowing how a siphon works, which also, there is no way that gas is still good by now. I looked it up once, and yeah, even if you have it in like an airtight container, it still only lasts for like 3 years. So, I don't know. Ellie then subjects Joel to the worst torture imaginable by having him listen to her puns. To be fair, they're actually not bad puns, especially later in the episode. Once again, I feel like a broken record here, but yeah, it's something about just how Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal play off of each other. It just doesn't feel necessarily the same. I mean, it doesn't really have to, because they're obviously going for something different here, but I just feel like, yeah, they didn't necessarily nail this 100% right. But like I said, this is a good scene, because it does actually show that Joel is starting to warm up to Ellie's sense of humor a bit more.
I stayed up all night, wondering where the sun went, and then it dawned on me.
Feel free to wait in the truck.
On the road to Kansas City, they play a little bit of Hank Williams from the game, which I gotta admit, the soundtrack is fire. And as they're driving through the ruined world, the song makes everything really melancholy. And like I said, I mean, even though that, you know, the voice dialogue here is ripped directly from the game, it just doesn't really feel very organic. Like, I mean, seriously, like look at Pedro Pascal's reaction here to Joel's reaction. It, like I said, it just doesn't feel the same.
Oh, why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you. Why are all these pages stuck together?
The Hank Williams that plays while they're driving through the ruined world is actually a pretty awesome scene. I mean, it really shows the world has just gone to shit. And to be honest, this scene probably should have been in the game to a certain extent. But of course, I mean, this scene is pretty much only here for a little bit of product placement, so, you know, there is that. So Joel decides it's been enough driving for today, so he takes the truck off the road into the forest, which, I mean, it's kind of like, alright, that sounds like a pretty good thing to do. You know, you don't want to be like caught with your pants down on the side of the road. But I mean, you know, you do also have like these very large wheel tracks leading directly into the forest. So who knows how actually good their hiding spot is. So Ellie and Joel are in the forest and they're enjoying some 20-year-old Chef Boyardee. But I mean, hey, you probably just sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan in that sucker. Tastes real good. Joel kind of hammers home the point that they're not hiding out there because of infected, they're hiding out there because of people. And if they find them, they might do a lot worse than just rob them or kill them, if you know what I mean.
Someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good.
And it actually kind of nails home the point of the video games, which is that the real antagonist isn't even really the zombies, or I should say the infected, it's actually the people themselves.
Why did the Scarecrow get an award?
Because he was outstanding in his field.
You dick! Did you read this?
No.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that pun was a little funny, okay? And it's actually a pretty good scene, I'm not gonna lie, okay? It got me that time. So they get into a little bit of a conversation in the car the next morning.
What's his name?
Whose name?
Your brother.
Tommy.
Younger or older?
Younger.
Why isn't he with you?
She asked more questions than a 4-year-old. Like, seriously, you just rapid firing them shits at him. But that being said, we actually do get some backstory to Tommy, which is that he enlisted in the army right when he got out of high school and was a part of Operation Desert Storm. And when he got out, that didn't necessarily satisfy him. But when the whole world went to shit, he banded with Joel and a group of survivors who later met Tess, before Tommy met Marlene and joined the Fireflies. But from the last Joel heard, he's disbanded from the Fireflies and now he's out there all by himself. So he's made it his personal quest to go get him. Ellie even asks him if he's such a pessimistic asshole all the time, how come he's still living? And he says that he does it for family, which I guess is pretty cool. And the only reason why he hasn't abandoned Ellie is because Tess was the closest thing he had to family besides Tommy. And since that the two jobs seem to correlate with each other, it seems like it's all on the same path anyways. Okay, so a slight deviation from the actual game. This is actually Kansas City, and in the video game, these events happened in Pittsburgh. I'm assuming that they chose Kansas City since it's probably a hell of a lot cheaper to shoot there than it is in Pittsburgh at the moment. So, you know how that goes. Anyways, there's a bunch of rubble blocking their way, so they instead decide to cut through the city and try to make it out the other side.
Well, don't look at the state map, look at the
I
inset.
don't know where we are in that either. This is my second day in a fucking car, man.
Okay, I will admit that is kind of a valid reason for getting turned around, you know. I mean, I know some dudes and some broads that get lost going down the street.
I'm lost!
Ellie then points out that the QZ seems to be abandoned, which we then get an answer to when they get ambushed in the same fashion that they were ambushed in the game, and Joel decides that he doesn't give a fuck and he's gonna plow right through them. Anyways, they get pinned down in a laundromat, and Joel, with some expert repositioning skills, ends up killing all of them, except for one who gets the drop on him, and Ellie has to come in for the assist. Although she doesn't actually kill him, and she kind of runs away while Joel finishes the job. It's actually kind of a fucked up scene. I mean, this dude is like literally begging for his life. Also, this dude's name is Brian, I guess. That'll be important for a joke I'll make later. Anyways, it then switches perspectives to this chick named Kathleen who's interrogating this doctor. So basically, this chick Kathleen is pissed and wants to know where another guy named Henry is. And it seems like he's responsible for her brother's death at the hands of Fedra. By the looks of things, it seems like some sort of revolutionary group has taken over the Fedra QZ in record time and has maybe only been in power for a couple of days, which this is future me talking right now, but I actually was right on that point. This is actually a bit different than how it was in the video game. In the video game, it was actually just a bunch of resistance fighters who banded with the Fireflies to help take down Fedra. But once the Fireflies moved on, then only the most radicalist of members got any traction. It actually seemed to be okay after the Fireflies left. They had trials and lawyers, but a dictator forced himself into power and everything went to crap. And it kind of painted the Fireflies in a little bit of a negative light, like they take all of this territory but they don't actually defend any of it or make sure that people are doing okay in these territories. And because of that, Pittsburgh became a hellhole where they would kill you on sight and then take you for all you were worth. Right in the middle of her interrogation, she's pulled outside and realized that Brian has biffed it. Oh, Brian, man, I think we got another Danny situation.
Holy shit, it's Danny.
Oh yeah, and she actually goes back and caps the doctor out of frustration. I do kind of like how this chick kind of like plays with her food, you know, like when she has people, you know, in her grasp. But I mean, I know it's nothing that the actress can really change because it's something personal to her, but I'm just saying her voice is really not that intimidating. Like, I mean, imagine like Marilyn Monroe, the leader of a resistance group or something.
Find every collaborator and kill them all.
Seriously, she sounds like my first grade teacher trying to get everyone to pay attention to her and stop picking their nose. It then switches back to Joel and Ellie. They realize that they might be safe where they're at temporarily, but they will have to move. Their plan is to head into the city so that they can find a tall building, because since they're searching house to house, it's gonna take them a while before they get to the middle of the city. They have a little heart-to-heart, and it's actually a little bit different than how it was in the game. See, in the game, Joel was actually pissed at Ellie for disobeying him because he needed to rely on her. But in the series, he's pissed that he had to rely on her, but he also feels sorry for her because he sees her as innocent, and he doesn't think a child should have to do or deal with the things that he deals with, which is actually kind of sweet, I'll admit. But Ellie's got some bigger balls on her than Joel thinks, since that she says that it wasn't her first time killing someone. Anyways, Joel shows her the proper way of carrying a gun around, so she's not flagging his ass like crazy. Anyways, it switches back to the perspective of Kathleen and her second in command, Harry, who, by the way, is actually played by the voice actor of Tommy in the original game, so, you know, that's kind of cool. But anyways, he shows her a secret hideaway where Henry and his brother Sam have been hiding out for a few days, and they feel like he's very close. Harry also informs her of this thing that looks like a sinkhole, but I'm assuming that there's a crap ton of infected down there, or something that's moving around. I mean, who knows, you know, maybe it's like, you know, the infected, they like bury themselves in the ground, or maybe it's like the tendrils, you know, that are connected amongst each other, and they're kind of like, you know, moving around or whatever constantly. Or maybe even like once the infected get to a certain point, they just bury themselves in the ground and become bloaters when they emerge, like a year later or something, who knows. Anyways, it switches back to Joel and Ellie again, and they go to possibly some sort of hospital or something. I really can't tell. It's the only thing I can imagine that would have like 50 floors of stairs in it. We also get a little bit of some dialogue from the game here, where Joel is interrogated by Ellie when she asks how he exactly knew that it was an ambush and it wasn't actually some guy who was begging for help. And Joel replies that he's been on both sides. Although I like how they did it in the game just a little bit better.
How did you know it was an ambush?
I've been on both sides.
Did you kill innocent people? How did you know
Of what?
about the ambush?
I've been on both sides.
Oh, so, you kill a lot of innocent people? We'll take that as a yes.
Joel makes it up as far as he can, and they decide to hunker down and sprinkle a bunch of glass on the ground so nobody can sneak up on them. Right before they tuck her down for the night, Ellie tells Joel a joke, and they actually share a little bit of a bonding experience laughing over these jokes.
Did you know diarrhea is hereditary? It runs in your genes.
That is so goddamn stupid.
You laughed, motherfucker.
I didn't laugh.
And I don't know, like that right there, that was a nice moment. I wish that they would have had just a little bit more of this, or maybe just kind of building up to this a bit more before this, because I mean, this is the 4th episode we're talking about. This is almost halftime here. I mean, it's only got like 9 episodes if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they gotta kind of hurry it up a little bit here. I mean, the game was maybe a quarter of the way through at this point. So I don't know, kind of weird. Also, Ellie mentions that she notices that Joel can't hear that good out of his right side. This is actually sort of like a meta reference, because Pedro Pascal is actually deaf in one ear. So, you know, I guess Joel had to be deaf too. Anyways, so Joel's woken up by Ellie, and it turns out Joel's glass trick didn't necessarily do anything, because they still got snuck up by these 2 people, who we can assume is Henry and Sam. All in all, this episode was actually okay. I think this is a pretty good episode. I mean, it's not like amazing, but it's okay. You know, I'd say it's probably like a 6, you know. It's actually pretty good. It's not bad. I can't really give it a 7. I mean, a little bit did happen during this episode, but I don't know. The episode itself actually wasn't that bad. I mean, you had a lot of character development between Joel and Ellie, which, like I said, should have been done throughout the series a bit more. But like I said before, they were in a completely different place in the game at this point right now. So I don't know, it just feels a little rushed, I guess you could say. So moving on to the next episode, it starts off showing the tail end of the revolution between Fedra and the resistance group. And these people are actually pretty freaking brutal. I mean, I guess Fedra really wasn't any better, but still. Anyways, Henry and Sam are navigating their way through the street. Henry talks to his brother using the American Sign Language system, and while I do think that this is done to score activism points so that they can get an Emmy, damn if it didn't actually enhance the story a little bit. Like, it's actually pretty intense, and it's pretty brutal, the things that they have to go through. But I think this change actually works a bit better for positive and negative reasons, but we'll get to that later. It then switches to the perspective of Kathleen and Perry, who have rounded up a group of Fedra sympathizers, or should I say collaborators, and is interrogating them for Henry's location.
You're informers. Inform.
Once again, spoken like a true school teacher right there, like seriously. I feel like this chick was a school teacher in her past life or something, like seriously. She says that they're gonna do a little bit of time because they did a no-no, and they just gotta spend a little bit in the timeout corner. But first, she needs to know where Henry is. And when no one snitches on him, she then tells Perry to kill them since none of them has snitched yet, until this one dude cracks. Although, to be honest, they should have just accepted their fate, because even if they did give them the information, they have no guarantee that they would let them live regardless, which is exactly what happens. She tells Perry and a group of soldiers to just go in and finish the job anyways. She then says that Henry needs to be found immediately, while Perry says he's not necessarily their top priority, since they already have the city locked down, and there's no way he could escape the perimeter without being caught. But Kathleen is persistent that he must be put on their top priority. You know, that's just what happens, you know, snitches get stitches. Anyways, it then switches back to Henry, who finds that doctor guy who was killed in the previous episode, and they all put themselves in the attic, since, you know, snitches gotta stick together and all that. They reckon with the provisions that the old man has gotten from a dead Fedra officer, they can last about 11 days up there. At this point, he notices that Sam is scared and tells Henry to go comfort him. And gosh darn it, man, if this scene is not actually like really freaking emotional here. Like, this was actually done pretty well, and I'm actually glad they took the time to show Henry and Sam's backstory here. I think it actually really did tie this episode together very nicely. And like I said, the sign language, in my opinion, seems to only heighten the intensity of the scenes. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's something that you just normally don't see very often. But yeah, it's just such a heart-wrenching scene. Henry having to lie to Sam, saying that everything's gonna be all right when he doesn't even know that. Oh man, it's actually a pretty gut-wrenching scene. 10 days go by and they completely deck out this attic with a bunch of paintings that Sam has done. Anyways, they wake up on the 11th day, and Henry relays to Sam that they have no more food, and the old guy hasn't returned, which means that he's probably biffed it. So they gotta try to escape. And it even shows how good of a brother Henry is to Sam by painting his face a little bit to make him into Super Sam, which, oh man, it just warms my heart. It warms my heart, but it also breaks it at the same time because we know what's gonna happen. Oh man. Anyways, they're about to leave when Henry sees Joel and Ellie slaughtering all of these people, and he decides to scrap his plan and instead follow Joel and Ellie, which was probably a good idea. It then skips forward to the present time, and everybody relays that they don't want to hurt each other and that they can all help each other escape. So when the sun rises, Henry tells Joel the backstory of the Kansas City QZ and how Fedra has been subjugating the people for almost 20 years, and of course people haven't really liked that. Henry then tells Joel that he is a Fedra collaborator, and Joel says that he doesn't work with rats, but I mean, it's like, you know, you really don't have a choice at this point, man. Like, come on. This version of Henry, I will admit, is a bit different, because in the game, Henry was exactly like Joel. He was just as ruthless as he was in the killing department. But in the show, he's actually never even killed anybody, nor has he actually fired his weapon before. So, kind of an interesting difference. Anyways, Henry's plan is he knows the city well, and Joel knows how to kill people, so with their brains and brawn, they'll be unstoppable. And Joel more or less agrees. Henry proposes that they use the underground tunnels that the city created back in the day to go underneath and then pop back up outside of the patrol routes that Kathleen has set up. Only problem with this is that a while back, Fedra drove all of the infected underground. But supposedly, they actually dealt with this and cleared out all of the infected that were down there. And Joel and Ellie are there just in case if they run into some. Joel and Ellie, not having many other choices, reluctantly agree. And they head out. Anyways, they make it halfway through the tunnels, and they actually find that some people used to live down here. And then this is where we also find a little bit of fan service.
Cock and ball torture.
And not that type of fan service, but a drawn picture of Ish and Danny. Not the Danny that died in The Last of Us Part 2, I may remind you, but a different Danny. There seems to already be some differences in the original story, for in the game, Henry and Joel traveled at night through a checkpoint and just plowed their way past all of the guys that were there. They got caught and an armored car ran them around the city until they had to desperately jump off of the Pittsburgh Bridge into the water below, where they were then saved by Henry and Sam later. And then they just so happened to find a tunnel system. And also in the games, Henry is just part of a group of survivors that traveled too far into the city and was separated by them. So, bit of some key differences here. A major thing I wish they would have touched on a little bit is the story of Ish. This is actually probably one of the best and most depressing stories in the entire series of The Last of Us, which is why I always say to people, if you just played the game and you never picked up any of the stories, you're literally missing half of the actual story. But yeah, you get this big long backstory about this underground civilization that had kids in it, and Danny and Ish protected the place. But one day, someone left a door unlocked, and all the infected scrammed in. And it even got so bad that some of the parents had to endgame themselves and their kids. Real messed up.
That's no good.
Anyways, there's a little bit of bonding here between Ellie and Sam over the comic book Starlight Savage. They talk about which comic books they have and which ones they've seen and stuff like that. And this is where I would have to say that the Sam in this story is maybe not the best. Not for any acting reasons, because the child actor actually does a pretty good job, but because Sam in the video games was only 2 years younger than Ellie, being 12 years old. This version of Sam is 8 years old, so they have less in common already. And I just thought it would be kind of cool if Ellie would have someone to more relate to, since that they would be around the same age and all that. But for what it is, if you've never played the games, which I'm assuming some people have, it's actually not that bad. So they decide to wait down in there since that there's actually kids stuff to play with, and so that when they pop back up on the other side, it might be nighttime. And Henry here divulges a huge secret that he's been hiding, which is that he wasn't just a collaborator of Fedra, but he was actually the collaborator of Fedra that caught the leader of the resistance group, Kathleen's brother. And apparently Kathleen's brother was the nicest man to ever live. He was very understanding and kind, but Sam gets sick with leukemia, and the only drug that could fight it was in Fedra's hands, and they didn't have a lot. So he decided to give up the leader of the resistance, and that was enough to save his brother's life. But in doing that, he only pushed Kathleen into a tailspin and made her and their group more radicalized, which eventually led to the whole city being overtaken. The perspective then switches back to Kathleen and Perry, where Kathleen has actually retreated back into her old bedroom. And it is kind of gut-wrenching to hear her tell stories about her brother and how much of a nice person he was, and how he would be disgusted with the things that she's done in his name. And he even said to her, while he was locked up, awaiting to be executed, to forgive Henry for what he's done, but she chose not to. Perry says that her brother, while he was a good man, he never got anything done, and it wasn't until she took hold of the resistance that their work had actually took fruition. Anyways, the perspective switches back to Joel and Ellie, where they pop back up in a specifically Bank of America parking lot. Yes, they had to put in that product placement there, but they seem to have made it through scot-free, except there's a sniper way off in the distance that's trying to shoot them. And it is kind of funny here to see Henry like run out there like once he gets scared and he thinks he can like run away, but the sniper shoots at him and he like stops in his tracks and like completely pivots and runs back. I don't know, I just thought it was really funny. Anyways, Joel says he's gonna flank them and get up to the room and kill them, which he gets up to the door and finds out that it's actually an old man who's stationed up there, and he begs him to just give him the rifle so that they can just resolve this peacefully and he doesn't have to die, because Joel really doesn't want to have to kill him, but he does anyways, and Joel greases him. But it turns out the old man was a snitch for Kathleen, and they're only a couple minutes away. In the game, this scene played out a bit differently. I mean, they were just, random scavengers that had set up a sniper's nest there. So I guess maybe it added a bit more drama to have it be an old guy that was sniping them. So it turns out Kathleen wasn't even joking, and they were literally like a minute away, and I mean, it's only been like maybe 3 minutes, and it is like outside of the quarantine zone, so, I would imagine it'd be a little bit harder to get there, but, whatever. Anyways, so the trucks are barreling towards them, and Joel actually does a freaking MLG level snipe from the rooftop here with the old guy's gun. I mean, look at Joel's face, like even he is surprised he made that shot. Anyways, the truck eats shit and rams into the side of this house and blows up, while Kathleen and her men have Henry, Ellie, and Sam pinned down. And it's a little gut-wrenching when Henry tells Ellie to take Sam and run. There's a little bit of a talk here between Kathleen and Henry, which was actually pretty good. Henry tries reasoning with Kathleen, but she's not gonna let any of them go, since Joel and Ellie are the people that killed Brian, and once again, oh my god, like, Brian's such a saint. Saint Brian here, right next to Saint Danny, and obviously because Henry sold out her brother. They also notice that Joel is sniping in the distance, and Perry actually does do some pretty strategic shit by training a gun on Joel to pin him down, while he sends 2 groups of 2 soldiers to flank the house and come up and kill him. Just spoiler alert, that never happened. Like, these 2 guys that are sent up to flank him, like, they just disappear. I don't know what happens to them. Regardless, Kathleen's about to dome Henry here, when the truck that crashed into the house actually creates a sinkhole, and a crap ton of the infected just pour out of here and rush everybody. And it turns into complete chaos, while Joel is picking them off slowly from above. And even a bloater comes out to confront them. Kathleen even runs off while Perry gets the Joel treatment. Anyways, Sam and Henry are pinned underneath a car by these two clickers, and Ellie saves them, which will be important later. And just as they're about to leave, they're all stopped by Kathleen, who is determined to finish what she started. But just then and there, a little girl clicker jumps out of the woodwork and stealth kills Kathleen. And our protagonists run away while they do a panning long shot of the infected finishing off the last of the Empire. Which, I mean, it just shows how freaking brutal the infected can be. And to be honest, I really wish they would have had more of this in the series, although unfortunately I think this is probably the most amount we are going to get, since I saw behind the scenes, they said this was the most amount of infected that they had to play with. I do actually kind of like it though, because they did a nice blend of practical and CGI effects here. I mean, shit, man, it's looking like Left 4 Dead over here with all these damn zombies. Anyways, they make it to an old motel where they're doing some much-earned R&R. Joel seems to like Henry, and Henry seems to like Joel and how much Sam has been bonding with Ellie. So he tells him first thing tomorrow morning, he's going to tell Sam that they're going to be traveling together. And with that being said, they put Ellie and Sam to bed, but of course they stay up reading comic books. And here we actually do have a little bit of a divergence from the game, where Sam actually shows Ellie that he's been infected, and she says that her blood is medicine. So she cuts open her hand and tries to heal him by putting some of her blood into him. Which, I mean, I guess this act of blood brothers is probably the best thing she could have done in the situation that she was presented with. But of course, when she wakes up the next morning, Sam is infected and tries to attack her. And just like in the game, Henry kills Sam and is overcome with so much grief that he doesn't want to live in a world without Sam anymore. So he unalives himself in Minecraft, of course. And I actually do kind of like the scene after this happens, where they actually dig a grave for Sam and Henry. And Ellie even wrote a little "I'm sorry" on the kid's little magnetic writing pad thing. Oh my gosh, it breaks my heart. Anyways, Joel and Ellie walk off into the rising sun, and that's that. And all in all, the episode was pretty good, okay? I'm not gonna lie. A lot of stuff was done. I would probably put it at like a 7 or 8, but I'm gonna be generous and lean more towards an 8 here. I've been kind of shitting on the series a little bit, but this had some good character building and of course an amazing action sequence. Like I said in episode 4, this is a little bit past halftime here. I mean, they kind of have to wrap this up a little quickly, and I can see that they're probably gonna have to make some cuts with some story beats later on in the series. But I guess we'll cover those when we get to them. Until then, I'm Mr.LetsGame, and thank you very much for listening to my review. If you like these sort of reviews, I have a whole channel filled with video game reviews, and I even have a 3.5 hour long review of The Last of Us Part 2, if you're interested in that sort of thing. But anyways, until next time, be sure to subscribe if you want some more content. And if you made it this long, if you could please give the video a like, that'd be appreciated. And also, if you guys could write down in the comments, like, why the heck is the pacing of these episodes so weird? Like, episode 5 is an hour long, episode 4 is like 45 minutes, and then episode 3 is like an hour 15. So, I don't know, I mean, maybe they just needed to do it this way because of pacing, but I don't know. Let me know.